Hello students, welcome back after the break. Hope you are doing good and eagerly waited for this module. So our today's module is on fundamental of computer hardware and accessories part 2. Dear students, in our first module we talked about a comprehensive list of input and output hardware devices like monitor, mouse, keyboard, printer or scanner and so on. I suppose it is very easy for all of us to recognize all these input and output devices I just mentioned. Why? Because we can visualize them frequently around us, in our office, in our smart classes, in play zone, at railway ticket counter, almost everywhere. All these peripheral devices are connected to computer system to add some functionality and are not the part of essential computer, that is memory and microprocessor, which reside inside the enclosed environment. So today we shall concentrate on these essential hardware devices which we don't observe usually and which reside inside the system unit. So let us first know what is system unit. It is a box-like unit which we usually know it by the name of computer case, chassis, tower or more famously the CPU or a cabinet, usually constructed from steel or aluminum and encases most of the component of the system. Therefore, provide mechanical support and protection for internal elements such as motherboard, processor, disk drive and power supplies, and controls the temperature of internal component by flow of air. And very importantly, it guards the internal components from the electrostatic discharge. Talking about the laptops, all these components are integrated onto the chassis with no separate tower. Laptops are generally very similar, although they may use low power or reduced size component, thus result in low performance. Remember, being a learner of digital forensic, it is the most essential component to know about the system unit, as our whole investigation revolves around this system unit, whether it is memory forensic or disk forensic. All these evidences reside inside the system unit. So here we go, making you friendly with this system unit. In usual system units, the front side contains the element which we need frequently, referred as the front panel connector, such as the power button, an optical disk drive such as CD-ROM or DVD-ROM. There is an audio outlet for a pair of headphones and a number of USB connections to connect your mobile phones or flash drive to the system. Now the back side, which is called as the rear panel connectors, contains the power socket where you plug in your power cord. There is monitor port to connect monitor. Usually we have VGA port, that is video graphic array, for connecting VGA cable. This is for display such as external monitor, projectors and HD TVs. VGA cables are recognized by their distinctive 15-pin design. There could be other types of monitor ports depending upon the make and model of your PC. So there could be DVI or HDMI ports. Then there is PS2 port to connect your mouse or keyboard. So they are also positioned somewhere here. Mouse port is usually green, whereas keyboard port is purple. Keyboard and mouse can be connected through USB port depending again upon the connector provided in your mouse or keyboard. So there are many USB ports to connect all these peripherals at the back side also. Then you find an Ethernet port to connect your system with internet or router. And finally, there is serial port and parallel ports for connecting the peripherals like printers or web cameras. Again, these peripherals can be connected through USB depending upon the connector provided in your peripherals. Let us now enter inside this system unit to know what resides inside the system unit. Where the main component which we will talk about is the motherboard. This is the motherboard. The processor, we have processor here down the fan, RAM or memory stick, hard drive, this is the hard drive, different slots for expansion cards, these are the expansion cards, and the power supply, this is the power supply. Where motherboard is the most important component inside the system unit. So, this is our motherboard, and all other components are directly or indirectly attached to this motherboard. Let us know about all these components one by one. So, we will start with the motherboard. So, this we have the motherboard, sometimes called as the main circuit board, system board, base board, planar board or logic board, and sometimes called as the MOBO. The motherboard is like the nervous system in your body. Like nerves, it distributes signals. It distributes the signals to all the parts and the helps to coordinate their activities by allowing these components to communicate with each other. So, all other components are installed on this motherboard and connected to it. It acts as the core or backplate or backplane and contains significant subsystems such as the central processor unit, the chipset that is for input output, and memory controllers, interface connectors and other components integrated for general purpose use and applications. So, it is the board with all the integrated circuits. You have all the integrated circuits here that connects the other parts of the computer, including the CPU. This is the processor here. So, this is the processor, the RAM, this is the RAM, the disk drive, this is the disk drive, like CD drive also, and DVD drive, and any other peripheral devices through ports or expansion slots. It is the biggest printed circuit board, also called as PCB, in the system unit, and contains special chips on some ICs. Integrated circuits are impressed. Motherboard come in different sizes, which are referred as the form factor. That means in assembled computer system, we can choose motherboard as per our requirement and budget. The most common form factor for a motherboard is ATX. Other common form factors are micro ATX and mini ITX. Let us talk in detail about different components of this motherboard. Let us first discuss about the chipset. It is one of the most important and main component of the motherboard, which you must know about it. It is directly mounted onto the motherboard, and in the modern architecture, a chipset is smaller set of chips constitute of North Bridge and South Bridge and has replaced larger amount of different chips. Its job is to control the data flow between the CPU, peripherals, bus slots and memory. It is very evident from the name that bridge which works to connect two things. Similarly, it stands true for North Bridge and South Bridge. Now, what is North Bridge? As the name suggests, the North Bridge is a chip which is located at the north or the upper side of the motherboard. It is situated near the CPU and directly connected to the processor. It is also connected to the memory, video card and express PCI slots in modern architecture. So, if the processor has to communicate with the memory, video card or PCI slot, it has to go through the middleman, that is North Bridge, thus act as a bridge between the processor, memory and the video card. Another secondary chip which is known as the South Bridge, which is positioned at the lower side of the motherboard and communicate and coordinate data flow between the SATA, USB slots which are positioned here, and ID connectors, and is responsible for performing tasks for the lower end. Dear friends, kindly note that there is no direct connection of the lower portion and the processor. So, it has to route through the north bridge. That is why north bridge is faster than the south bridge. Both these north and south bridges has to communicate with different parts of the motherboard using buses which act as pathways. A motherboard contains several types of the buses which vary in speed and bandwidth. Dear student, before we are moving to the next component, it is pertinent to mention about various connectors and ports. Since motherboard of any system is the main board where actual processing of the information take place, whether it is desktop, laptop, mobile or any tablet. So, all the peripheral devices like cameras, printers, camera recorders, scanners, mouse, keyboard, handsets, anything has to route through the motherboard. So, there are different connectors like USB cables, IDE, SATA cables, and there are dedicated ports which make the plug of these connectors. So, let us talk about the USB cables which we have been talking since the starting of this module. USB cables, also named as Universal Serial Bus, are primarily used to connect computer to the peripheral devices like cameras, printers and any other peripheral devices. They are also one of the most popular cables in the networking world. When it comes to choosing a USB firewall cable for your application, there are many options. Consider like USB A, USB B, USB 3 and USB 2 cables. Each one of it has its own size, capabilities and functions. Let me tell you that the USB 1 only had a data transfer speed of 12 MB per second, where the USB 2 had speed up to 480 MB per second, while the USB 3 and 3.1 have reached up to 5 GB per second and 10 GB per second respectively. Dear students, you also come across the word firewall, which works much like a USB but was created to quickly relay information in an easy to use manner and to allow many devices to use the same bus. It was first developed by Apple and was standardized till 1995 and was given the name as IEEE 1394, has a high performance serial bus. The difference between the firewire and the USB is the data handling capacity, where USB can transfer 480 megabytes per second and the firewire can take up to 800 megabytes per second. But dear friends, this has faded its glory with time because of its cost, requirement of dedicated controller in both computer and peripherals. Let us now talk about IDE and SATA interfaces. IDE, the Integrated Drive Electronics, a standard interface which is used to provide connectivity between a computer and motherboard. The storage devices like hard drive and optical drives. This is also referred as parallel ATA or PATA. This IDE interface is somewhat outdated now, which is totally replaced by the smaller and much faster SATA interface, that is Serial Advanced Technology Attachment or Serial ATA. SATA is now the new standard in the modern computers, which is much more faster in transfer of data than its counterpart IDE, being able to attain a speed up to 600 megabytes per second and much more, as opposed to the IDE interface which can reach a maximum of 133 megabytes per second. The processor socket is the central piece of the motherboard, usually being located near the center of the motherboard. It is also the centerpiece because it holds the processor, what we call as the brain of your computer, as it manages most of the computer operations. Processor can be with pin or pinless. This is pinless type of the processor, and it contains the control unit and logic unit. Latest processors are also coming with the inbuilt graphic processing unit called as GPU. Dear students, as you know, once we enter the data through input devices, it is going to be processed. That means there should be some dedicated component in the computer which do it for us. So it is the job of processor to make the data meaningful for us or convert our input data into the desired output by executing instructions. Since this has to do a lot of work, so usually a fan. This fan is positioned for cooling the processor. Next basic component we are going to talk about is RAM. So here we have our RAM here. This is the RAM or memory stick, called as the random access memory. It is the primary memory of the computer that holds all the programs and data which the processor is actively using at the time. It is necessary for core computing and considered just as important as your processor or hard drive. With the right amount of the RAM on your computer, the performance of your PC and the ability to support various types of the software is optimized. It is located in the upper side, as you can see, of the motherboard. The memory slots are used to house the computer memory modules called as the dual inline memory modules or DIMMs. It is the small scale circuit board that holds the memory chip on the motherboard. Dear students, the number of memory slots should be an important criteria to take into account when you are going to buy a new system, as it will determine the maximum amount of memory you can install. RAM usually come in the sizes of 2 GB, 4 GB and 8 GB, but can be much larger. Latest motherboards support DDR3 memory and current industry standard memory architecture, but motherboards with DDR2 memory slots and even DDR1 memory slots are still present in the market. The next important component is BIOS chip and battery. So this is the BIOS chip and this is the battery. BIOS is a type of read-only memory, that is ROM memory, that runs when the computer is powered on and initiate a process known as booting or booting up. The BIOS, which stands for Basic Input-Output System, includes the boot firmware, which is software stored on a small memory chip on the motherboard. Here we have it. The BIOS chip contains the basic code needed to take your computer through the booting process up to the point where the operating system takes over. Since the BIOS code is stored onto the memory chip, there is a need for constant power to it to work. So a battery called CMOS battery is also present to keep the chip powered. Let's now talk about the another component of the motherboard, which is attached to it through an ATA, SCSI or SATA cables, that is hard drive. So here we have the hard drive. It is the most important, yes, the most important evidence for investigation because it stores all the data permanently. So all our files, folders, operating system, programs and applications are saved here. The back end of the hard drive contains a port for a cable that connects to it to the motherboard. They can be connected through SATA or PATA, as we already mentioned, depending on the type of hard drive. We also know these hard drives by the name of HDD, hard drive disks or hard disk fixed drives. Regardless of what it is called, it is primarily the hard drive which contains the root folder which the operating system uses. Where the capacity of hard drive is again a huge factor in the deciding whether one should buy a particular device or not, whether it is a laptop, mobile phone or likewise. Like when you are going to buy a smartphone where you have to store a lot of HD videos and images, you would prefer a high capacity hard drive like 64 GB rather than a low capacity of 8 GB. The most popular type of the hard drive manufacturers are Seagate, Western Digital, Hitachi and Toshiba. Next we are going to talk about the PCI slots. These are the PCI slots here, which stands for Peripheral Component Interface, which allow you to insert expansion cards into your computer. There can be different type of the expansion cards which can be inserted like sound card, RAID cards, SSDs, graphic cards, etc. Basically, in the olden days of computers, if you wanted to expand the functionality of a computer, you had to buy a dedicated part made specially for that computer. Even different generation of same computer sometimes did not work together. Hence, the PCI slots are there to provide a common interface that can be adapted for any type of the usage. As we just mentioned about PCI slots, which are used to provide interface to various expansion cards, let us now see what different expansion cards we have. An expansion card, which is also called an accessory card, is a printed circuit board that can be inserted into these expansion slots of the computer motherboard to add functionality to your computer system via expansion buses. Why it is called expansion card? Because it is used to expand various features which are not offered by our motherboard. For example, a sound card is an expansion board which enables the computer to output sounds through speakers. You can also install a TV tuner or a video capture card on these expansion slots. Let us see what is video card or graphic adapter means. As the name implies, the adapter processor computer graphics. This helps to display output from the computer onto your screen and situated right below the processor. And in recent design, as we earlier mentioned, it is integrated onto the processor, as I earlier mentioned. Graphic cards consist of a printed circuit board on which graphic processing unit, heatsink, video BIOS or a firmware which contains the basic program, and it has also its own dedicated RAM. The integrated graphic cards, sometimes known as on-board graphic cards, are the default option that come with the standard motherboards. They are least powerful, so if you want to play the latest video game, you have to upgrade your video card. There is AGP, called as the accelerating graphic port, is the successor of PCI type, designed to accelerate 3D graphics. But the PCI Express slots are much more common in newer motherboards. The last we are going to discuss is power supply unit. As you know, no computer component can operate without power. So a power supply unit, we also know it by PSU, supplies the power to the different component of the motherboard through these wires and converts the alternating currents from your home line to the direct current needed by the computer. It is situated either near the right edge of the motherboard or somewhere close to the processor socket on the older motherboards. Laptops are capable of running from a built-in battery which provides power to the every part of its components. It could be customized as per our need. So with this, we come to an end of today's module. Hope with this module you got to know about various components of essential computing which reside inside the system unit. Hope by now you will be able to recognize them easily. I suppose if you are planning for a new PC, you can also decide about your motherboard and can build your own customized PC as per your budget and your requirement. Thank you for giving your time today. See you in the next module. Take care. Enjoy your digital world. Goodbye.